Admiral Lee Daeho stood at the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the alien ships approach Earth's moon. The massive vessels looked like dark metal daggers cutting through space. Each ship was twice the size of Earth's largest space station. There were 12 of them, and they moved with the confidence of predators who had never met their match. "They're early," said Ambassador Park So-jin, joining him at the window. She wore her best diplomatic uniform, but Lee could see the tension in her shoulders. "The Veltharians weren't supposed to arrive for another 6 hours." Lee nodded, his weathered face showing no emotion. At 62, he had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. 20 years ago, when Earth found the wreckage on Titan, everything changed. The crashed alien ship held technology beyond human understanding. But more importantly, it held warnings about what was coming. "Have you reviewed the files we're giving them?" Lee asked. Park smiled grimly. "Completely fake, according to those documents. Our most advanced ship is the UES Liberty, a simple cruiser with basic weapons and old-style nuclear engines. They'll think we can barely reach Mars." The truth was very different. Hidden in the shadow of Europa, Jupiter's ice moon, sat the most powerful warship ever built by human hands. The Aegis of Terra was 15 kilometers long and housed 50,000 crew members. It could destroy entire fleets and travel across the galaxy in moments. But the aliens would never suspect its existence. "Sir," called Lieutenant Kang Soo-jin from her communication station. "The Veltharian delegation is requesting permission to dock." Lee straightened his uniform. "Grant permission. Dock them at Bay 7. As the alien shuttle approached, Lee thought about the past 20 years. When Earth scientists first studied the crashed ship on Titan, they found records of a galactic empire. The Veltharian Empire controlled thousands of worlds and enslaved dozens of species. The crashed ship's pilot had been fleeing from them when he died in Earth's solar system. The pilot's final message was clear. The Empire would come to Earth someday. They always did. So Earth prepared in secret. Using the alien technology, human scientists built weapons and ships beyond anything the galaxy had seen. They developed quantum-fold drives that made faster-than-light travel instant. They created energy shields that could stop planet-killer weapons. And they built the Aegis of Terra, but Earth's greatest weapon was deception. The planet appeared weak and divided. Human colonies looked primitive. Earth's military seemed small and poorly equipped. It was all carefully planned to make the Empire underestimate them. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Admiral Zethran walked through first, his reptilian features twisted in what might have been amusement. Behind him came 6 other Veltharians, each wearing ornate military uniforms covered in symbols of conquest. "Humans," Zethran said in accented English. His translator device made his voice sound mechanical. "I am Admiral Zethran of the Veltharian Imperial Fleet. You will surrender your world to the Empire." Ambassador Park stepped forward, bowing slightly. "Welcome to Luna Station, Admiral. I am Ambassador Park So-jin. We're honored by your visit." Zethran's eyes narrowed. "This is not a visit. This is conquest. Your species will serve the Empire, or you will be eliminated." Park maintained her diplomatic smile. "Perhaps we should discuss this in our conference room. We have prepared detailed information about Earth's capabilities." As they walked through the station's corridors, Lee studied the aliens. Zethran moved like a soldier, but his subordinates seemed bored. They had done this before, on hundreds of worlds. To them, this was routine. The conference room was designed to look simple and cheap. The furniture was basic metal and plastic. The computer displays showed outdated technology. Everything was meant to make Earth look weak and poor. Park activated a holographic display showing Earth's military assets. The images showed a few dozen ships, mostly converted cargo vessels with basic weapons. The largest was the UES Liberty, which looked impressive, but was actually just an empty shell built for this deception. "These are our defensive forces," Park said. "We have 43 ships total, with a combined crew of 8,000 personnel." Zethran studied the display for exactly 30 seconds. Then he laughed, a harsh, grinding sound. "This is your military? We have single ships larger than your entire fleet." One of his subordinates whispered something in the Veltharian language. Zethran nodded and turned back to Park. "The Empire offers you a choice. Surrender your outer colonies within 72 hours, and we will allow your species to live as servants. Refuse, and we will demonstrate why resistance is futile." Lee spoke for the first time. "And if we comply, what happens to humanity? You will work for the Empire. Your strongest will serve in our armies. Your smartest will advance our technology. Your worlds will provide resources for our expansion. It is a generous offer." Park exchanged a look with Lee. They had expected this. Every species the Empire encountered received the same ultimatum. Most surrendered immediately. A few fought and were destroyed within hours. "We need time to consider," Park said. 72 hours isn't long enough to contact all our colonies and coordinate a response." Zethran stood up, his massive frame casting a shadow across the table. 72 hours, not 1 minute more. We will position our fleet around your world to ensure you make the correct choice." As the Veltharians left, Lee caught Park's arm. "Signal Captain Kim. Tell him it's time." Park nodded. Far away, near Jupiter, Captain Kim Tae-min received the coded message on his personal communicator. He stood on the bridge of the Aegis of Terra, looking out at the vast ship's forward section stretching into the distance. Around him, his crew worked quietly at stations that controlled weapons capable of cracking planets. "All stations, this is the captain," Kim announced. "Operation Thunder is now active. Begin final preparations." Throughout the massive ship, 50,000 crew members began the final checks. In the fighter bays, Commander Oh Jin-woo briefed his pilots on targets they had studied for years. In engineering, Choi Min-ho supervised the quantum fold drives that would make their surprise possible. Dr. Yoon Hana stood in her laboratory, surrounded by displays showing Earth's solar system. Red dots marked the positions of Veltharian ships as they spread out around Earth. They thought they were setting up a blockade. Actually, they were positioning themselves perfectly for Earth's counterattack. Back on Luna Station, Admiral Lee watched the alien fleet deploy. Zethran had positioned his ships exactly where Earth's computers had predicted. The aliens followed the same tactics they had used on hundreds of other worlds. "Sir," Lieutenant Kang reported, "the Veltharian flagship is broadcasting to Earth. They're showing holographic images of destroyed cities and enslaved populations. Standard intimidation tactics." Lee almost smiled. The Empire's greatest strength was also its weakness. They had conquered so many primitive species that they could not imagine meeting an equal opponent. Their arrogance would be their downfall. Ambassador Park appeared at his shoulder. "The President wants to know if we're really going through with this. Once we attack, there's no going back." Lee looked out at the Veltharian ships surrounding Earth. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a city, but they had no idea what was coming for them. "Tell the President that Earth has been preparing for this war for 20 years, Lee said. "It's time to show the galaxy that humanity will not be conquered." 72 hours later, the ultimatum would expire. But Earth's answer would come much sooner than that, and it would come from the one place the Veltharians would never expect, the dark space beyond Jupiter, where humanity's greatest secret waited to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The war for Earth's freedom was about to begin, and the Empire had no idea what they had awakened. Captain Kim Tae-min walked through the corridors of the Aegis of Terra, feeling the subtle vibration of the massive ship's engines beneath his feet. After 20 years of construction, the Supercarrier was finally ready for battle. Its quantum fold Drives hummed with barely contained energy, waiting to tear holes in space itself. The ship was a marvel that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. 15 kilometers from bow to stern, it was 3 times larger than the Empire's biggest dreadnought. But size was not its greatest advantage. The Aegis of Terra could appear anywhere in the galaxy instantly, strike with devastating force, and vanish before enemies could react. "Captain," called engineer Choi Min-ho from his workstation, "all quantum fold drives are operating at full capacity. We can jump to Earth orbit in 30 seconds when you give the order." Kim nodded. The bridge around him was a symphony of controlled activity. Officers monitored displays showing every Veltharian ship in the solar system. They had been watching the enemy for 3 days, learning their patterns and weaknesses. "Dr. Yoon," Kim said to the chief scientist, "status report on our special systems." Dr. Yoon Hana looked up from her console, where streams of data showed the ship's most secret weapons. "All quantum disruptors are charged and ready. The phase shift generators are stable. Our fighters are equipped with microfold drives for hit-and-run attacks." Kim allowed himself a small smile. The Veltharians thought they were dealing with primitive humans who had barely reached their own moon. They had no idea that Earth possessed technology that made their empire look like children playing with toys. The truth was, 20 years in, the making. When the alien ship crashed on Titan in 2367, Earth scientists found more than just advanced technology. They found the complete database of a species called the Architects, the original builders of the galactic civilization that existed long before the Veltharian Empire. The Architects had been peaceful explorers who created a network of quantum gates connecting thousands of worlds. They built magnificent ships and developed technologies that seemed like magic. But 10,000 years ago, they simply vanished, leaving only scattered ruins and hidden databases. The crashed ship on Titan had been carrying one of these databases. Its pilot was an Architect survivor who had spent centuries fleeing the Empire. Before dying, he activated the database's security protocols, hiding its contents until a species worthy of the Architect legacy discovered it. Humanity proved worthy. Instead of using the technology for conquest, Earth's leaders decided to use it for protection. They built the Aegis of Terra in secret, deep in the asteroid belt beyond Jupiter. The ship's construction required resources from every nation on Earth and the combined efforts of humanity's best scientists and engineers. "Commander O," Kim called to his fighter squadron leader. "How are your pilots?" Commander O Jin Woo stood at attention. "Ready for combat, sir. All 50 squadrons are prepared for launch. Our pilots have trained in the simulators for years, but they're eager for the real thing." Each fighter squadron consisted of 20 advanced ships, invisible to normal sensors, and equipped with weapons that could punch through the heaviest armor. The fighters could fold short distances through space, appearing behind enemy ships before their targets knew they were under attack. Lieutenant Kang Soo-jin looked up from her communications station. "Sir, I'm receiving a coded transmission from Luna Station. Admiral Lee confirms that the Veltharian ultimatum expires in 6 hours." Kim studied the tactical display. 12 Veltharian warships surrounded Earth in a classic blockade formation. They were powerful ships, each carrying enough firepower to level a continent. But they were also predictable, following standard imperial doctrine that had worked against primitive species for thousands of years. "The enemy is positioning exactly as our computers predicted," reported Tactical Officer Seo Dong-hyun. "There, flagship is maintaining position above Earth's North Pole. The other ships are spread out to cover all possible escape routes." Kim walked to the main display, where a 3-dimensional map showed the entire solar system. Red dots marked Veltharian positions. Blue dots showed the few Earth ships that were visible to enemy sensors, old cargo vessels converted into decoy warships. But the map also showed something the Veltharians could not see. Deep in the asteroid belt, 3 more shapes were hidden. Earth had not built just one supercarrier. The Aegis of Terra had 2 sister ships, the Shield of Humanity and the Sword of Freedom. All 3 were ready for battle. Dr. Lim, Kim called to another scientist. Are the quantum jammers still effective? Dr. Lim Jae-sung nodded from his station. The Veltharian ships cannot detect us. Our quantum field generators are creating a bubble of altered space around the ship. To their sensors, we look like an asteroid. The deception was perfect. Earth had spent years learning Imperial technology from captured databases. Every weakness in their sensors, every gap in their defenses, every predictable tactic was known and catalogued. The Empire's greatest strength, their standardized technology, had become their greatest vulnerability. "Sir," interrupted Lieutenant Kang, "priority message from Earth Defense Command. Ambassador Park reports that Admiral Zethron is becoming impatient. He's threatening to begin bombardment early if Earth doesn't respond soon." Kim considered this. The original plan called for waiting until the last possible moment before striking. But if the Veltharians began attacking civilians, Earth would have to act sooner. "Signal the Shield of Humanity and Sword of Freedom," Kim ordered. "All ships are to prepare for immediate deployment. We may need to move up our timeline." Throughout the ship, alert signals began flashing. In the fighter bays, pilots ran to their ships. Pilot An Boram strapped herself into her fighter's cockpit, running through pre-flight checks with practiced efficiency. Around her, 999 other pilots did the same. "All fighters report ready," Commander O announced. "We can launch all squadrons in under 2 minutes." Kim nodded. The Aegis of Terra carried 1,000 fighters, more than the entire Veltharian fleet combined. But numbers were not the only advantage. Earth's fighters were faster, more maneuverable, and equipped with weapons that could penetrate Imperial. "Shields! Captain!" Dr. Yoon called urgently. "I'm detecting massive energy buildup from the Veltharian flagship. They're charging their primary weapons." The main display shifted to show Earth's orbital space. The enemy flagship, a massive vessel called the Dominion's Edge, was indeed powering up its main guns. These were planet cracker weapons designed to shatter worlds from orbit. "Time to full charge?" Kim asked. 18 minutes, sir." Kim made his decision. Earth's plan had always been flexible, adapting to enemy actions. The Veltharians were moving faster than expected, which meant Earth would have to respond faster as well. "All stations, battle stations," Kim announced. The bridge lights dimmed to red, and throughout the massive ship, 50,000 crew members prepared for humanity's first interstellar war. "Quantum fold drives to full power," Kim ordered. "Target coordinates, Earth orbital space, 2,000 kilometers above the Veltharian flagship." "Coordinates locked," replied the navigation officer. "All weapon systems armed and ready," reported the weapons officer. "Fighter squadrons prepared for immediate launch," confirmed Commander O. Kim looked around his bridge one last time. These men and women had trained for this moment their entire careers. They were about to face an enemy that had conquered hundreds of worlds and enslaved billions of beings. But they were also about to show the galaxy that Earth would not be. Another easy victory. "Dr. Yoon, open a channel to Earth Defense Command," Kim said. "Channel open, sir." "Admiral Lee, this is Captain Kim. The Aegis of Terra is ready to begin Operation Thunder. The galaxy is about to learn that humanity will not go quietly into the night." Admiral Lee's voice came back strong and clear. "Godspeed, Captain. Show them what Earth can do." Kim turned to his crew. "Initiate quantum fold. Take us to Earth." The massive ship began to shimmer as reality bent around it. In moments, the Aegis of Terra would appear in Earth orbit like an avenging angel, bringing with it the full fury of humanity's hidden strength. The Veltharian Empire was about to receive the shock of its existence. Admiral Zethron stood on the bridge of the Dominion's Edge, watching Earth slowly rotate below. The blue and green planet looked peaceful and defenseless. In 18 minutes, his ship's main cannon would demonstrate the price of defying the Veltharian Empire. "Status report," Zethron demanded. "Planet cracker cannon charging at 60%, reported his weapons officer. All escort ships are in position around the planet. The human fleet remains in hiding, probably cowering behind their moon. Zethran's reptilian features twisted into what passed for a smile among his species. Once we destroy one of their cities, they'll surrender quickly enough. Humans are weak creatures. They cannot bear to see their young suffer. He had used this tactic on dozens of worlds. Show overwhelming force, destroy something the natives valued, then offer surrender. It worked every time. The humans would be no different. But as Zethran watched Earth, something impossible happened. Space itself seemed to tear open 2,000 kilometers above his ship. A massive hole in reality appeared, crackling with purple energy. And through that hole came something that made Zethran's blood freeze in his veins. The ship that emerged was enormous beyond comprehension. It was longer than 3 Imperial dreadnoughts placed end to end. Its hull was black as space itself, but lines of blue energy ran along its surface like veins of lightning. Weapons bristled from every surface, and fighter bays large enough to house entire squadrons gaped open along its sides. "What is that?" Zethran whispered. Before anyone could answer, the massive ship's guns opened fire. Beams of pure energy lanced out from the human vessel, striking the Dominion's Edge's shields. But these were not the primitive lasers Zethran expected. These were quantum disruptors, weapons that didn't just hit armor, they unmade it at the atomic level. The Empire's strongest shields lasted exactly 3 seconds. Captain Kim Taemin watched from the bridge of the Aegis of Terra as his ship's main guns tore into the Veltharian flagship. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency, targeting the enemy vessels with precision strikes. Direct hit on the flagship's main weapon, reported Tactical Officer Seo Dong-hyun. Their planet cracker is offline. Excellent. Launch all fighters. Begin Phase 2. Commander Oh Jin-woo's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. All squadrons, this is Dragon Leader. Launch, launch, launch. From the Aegis of Terra's fighter bays, 1,000 small ships poured out like angry hornets. Each fighter was invisible to Imperial sensors, equipped with micro-fold drives that let them teleport short distances through space. Pilot An Bo-ram felt her heart race as her fighter shot out of the launch bay. Around her, the stars wheeled as she oriented toward her target, a Veltharian destroyer positioned above Earth's Pacific Ocean. "Phoenix Squadron, follow my lead," she called to her 19 wingmates. "Target the destroyer's engine section. Hit and fade tactics." The Veltharian destroyer never saw them coming. One moment, space around the ship was empty. The next, 20 fighters materialized from nowhere, firing quantum torpedoes into the destroyer's engines. The Imperial ship shuddered as explosions tore through its hull. "Enemy contacts!" screamed the destroyer's captain. Where did they come from? But before his gunners could respond, the human fighters vanished again, folding space to appear on the opposite side of the ship. More torpedoes slammed into the destroyer's hull, and atmosphere began venting from dozens of breaches. This scene repeated throughout Earth's orbital space. Human fighters appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking devastating blows before vanishing. The Veltharian ships found themselves fighting an enemy they could not predict or counter. Admiral Zethran watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. 3 ships were already dead in space, their hulls split open by weapons that seemed to ignore Imperial armor. The massive human vessel, he could see now that it was definitely a warship, continued to pour devastating fire into his flagship. Return. "Fire!" he screamed. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human dreadnought!" The remaining Veltharian ships turned their guns on the Aegis of Terra. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles streaked toward the human vessel. But when the attack struck, something impossible happened. The human ship began to shimmer and fade, becoming translucent. The Imperial weapons passed right through it as if it were made of mist. "Phase shift generators holding steady," Dr. Yoon Ha-na reported from her station. "Enemy weapons cannot touch us while we're out of phase with normal space." Captain Kim nodded. Earth's scientists had developed the phase shift technology from architect databases. It allowed the ship to exist slightly outside normal reality, making it untouchable while still able to fire its own weapons. "Bring us back into phase," Kim ordered. "Target the enemy flagship's bridge section." The Aegis of Terra solidified again, and its quantum disruptors spoke with the voice of human fury. The beam struck the Dominion's edge directly in its command center, tearing through armor like paper. On the Imperial flagship's bridge, alarms screamed as atmosphere rushed out through massive holes in the hull. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, but half the bridge crew was already dead. Admiral Zethran found himself trapped in the ship's emergency command center, watching his fleet die through cracked view screens. In less than 10 minutes, the humans had destroyed or disabled 8 of his 12 ships. The survivors were frantically trying to retreat, but the ghostly human fighters kept appearing to block their escape routes. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "I'm receiving reports from our other ships. The enemy fighters are using some kind of teleportation technology. Our sensors can't track them." Zethran slammed his fist against the wall. "How is this possible? The humans were supposed to be primitive. Their technology should be thousands of years behind ours." But even as he spoke, he began to understand. The Empire's intelligence had been wrong, completely, catastrophically wrong. The humans were not primitive at all. They had been hiding their true capabilities, allowing the Empire to underestimate them. It was a trap, and he had walked into it with his entire fleet. "All ships," Zethran broadcast on the emergency frequency. "Retreat immediately. Jump to hyperspace. We must warn the Empire." But as the surviving Veltharian ships tried to escape, they discovered another terrible truth. The human fighters had used their teleportation ability to position themselves around every Imperial vessel. When the Veltharians tried to jump to hyperspace, they found their escape routes blocked by quantum mines that the fighters had placed. The mines detonated when the ships tried to enter hyperspace, tearing the fleeing vessels apart in bursts of purple fire. Commander O Jinwoo coordinated the final phase of the attack from his fighter's cockpit. "All squadrons, the enemy is contained. Begin final strikes on disabled vessels." But Captain Kim's voice cut across the squadron frequency. "Negative, Commander. Cease fire on ships that have surrendered. We are not butchers." Throughout the battle zone, Veltharian ships were dropping their shields and broadcasting surrender signals. The human fighters held their fire, surrounding the defeated vessels, but not destroying them. On the bridge of the Aegis of Terra, Kim watched the tactical display show the results of humanity's first space battle. Of 12 Imperial ships, 4 were destroyed, 6 were disabled, and 2 had managed to escape by abandoning their weapons and surrendering immediately. "Total casualties?" Kim asked. "0 human losses," reported the tactical officer. "Minor damage to Fighter Squadron 7 when they flew too close to an exploding enemy ship. All our pilots are returning safely." Kim felt a mixture of relief and grim satisfaction. The battle had gone exactly as planned. Earth's forces had demonstrated overwhelming superiority while minimizing casualties on both sides. "Sir," Lieutenant Kang called from communications. "I'm receiving a transmission from Luna Station. Admiral Lee wants to speak with you." Admiral Lee's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Kim could see the observation deck where human and alien diplomats watched the battle's aftermath. "Outstanding work, Captain," Lee said. "You've just changed the balance of power in this galaxy. But I'm afraid this is only the beginning." Kim nodded. "The ships that escaped will report back to the Empire. They'll know we're not the primitives they expected." "Exactly. Which means they'll come back with everything they have." Lee's expression was grim. "How soon can you be ready for a real war?" Kim looked around his bridge, where his crew was already beginning post-battle analysis and repairs. The Aegis of Terra had performed perfectly, but one ship could not fight an entire empire. "Give me 6 hours to rearm and refuel," Kim said. "And Admiral, you might want to consider bringing the Shield of Humanity and Sword of Freedom out of hiding." Something tells me we're going to need them. As the Aegis of Terra began collecting survivors from the destroyed Veltharian ships, reports of the battle spread across the galaxy. On hundreds of worlds, enslaved species heard impossible news. Someone had defeated an Imperial fleet. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy had hope, and Earth had announced its arrival on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. Grand Admiral Vexathari received the news of the Earth battle while inspecting the Imperial Navy's primary fleet at Velthara Prime. The report came from one of the two ships that had escaped, and at first she refused to believe it. A single human ship destroyed an entire battle group? She demanded, her scarred reptilian face showing disbelief. That's impossible. Admiral Zethron commanded our finest vessels. Commander Zulhan, one of the survivors, stood at attention despite his obvious injuries. It's true, Grand Admiral. The human vessel was enormous, larger than anything in our fleet. It appeared from nowhere using some kind of space-folding technology. Vexathari studied the tactical recordings from the battle. What she saw changed. Everything she thought she knew about warfare. The human ship had phased in and out of reality, becoming untouchable while still able to attack. Their fighters had teleported around Imperial vessels like supernatural beings. How many human ships were involved in this attack? Just one, Grand Admiral, but our intelligence was completely wrong. The humans are not primitive. Their technology is beyond anything we've encountered. Vexathari dismissed the commander and called an emergency meeting of the War Council. Within hours, the Empire's top military leaders had gathered in the massive command center above Velthara Prime. The human threat must be eliminated immediately, declared Admiral Corvith, commander of the Second Fleet. We cannot allow this defeat to inspire rebellion among our subject species. But Vexathari was more cautious. She had not become Grand Admiral by underestimating enemies. If the humans have one ship with this technology, they may have more. We need to understand what we're facing before we commit our forces. The debate continued for hours, but reports from across the Empire forced a decision. On dozens of worlds, enslaved species were beginning to resist Imperial rule. The news of Earth's victory had spread like wildfire, giving hope to billions of oppressed beings. Very well, Vexathari announced. I will take personal command of this operation. Assemble the first, second, and third fleets. 3,000 ships should be enough to handle any human surprises. But even as the Empire mobilized its forces, Earth was preparing for the next phase of the war. Captain Kim Tae-min stood in the Aegis of Terra's main briefing room, addressing his senior officers. The past week had been spent analyzing the battle and preparing for the Empire's inevitable response. Intelligence reports indicate the Empire is massing a huge fleet, Kim explained, gesturing to the holographic display. 3,000 ships, led by their most experienced admiral. They're taking us seriously now. Commander Oh Jin-woo leaned forward. How do we fight 3,000 ships? Even with our advantages, those are overwhelming numbers. Dr. Yoon Ha-na spoke up from her position at the science station. We've been analyzing the captured Veltharian technology. I believe we can adapt our quantum jammers to disrupt their communications and coordination systems. Engineer Choi Min-ho nodded. The quantum fold drives are performing better than expected. We can hit multiple targets across a wide area, striking and retreating before they can respond effectively. Kim appreciated his crew's confidence, but he knew they would need help. The good news is that we're not alone anymore. Admiral Lee has authorized revealing our sister ships. The main display changed to show two more massive vessels emerging from hidden bases in the asteroid belt. The Shield of Humanity and Sword of Freedom were identical to the Aegis of Terra in size and capability. Each carried its own complement of fighters and advanced weapons. 3 supercarriers against 3,000 Imperial ships, mused Lieutenant Kang Soo-jin. The odds are still not in our favor. Numbers aren't everything, Kim replied. The Empire has grown arrogant from centuries of easy victories. They expect enemies to fight according to their rules. We're going to show them what happens when Someone refuses to play by those rules. Dr. Lim Jae-sung had been working frantically since the first battle, analyzing captured Imperial technology. "I've made a breakthrough," he announced. "The Veltharian ships all use the same basic design philosophy. They rely on massive shields and heavy armor, but their systems are surprisingly vulnerable to quantum disruption." "Meaning what?" Kim asked. "Meaning, we can develop weapons specifically designed to counter their defenses. Quantum resonance torpedoes that will collapse their shields, and disruptor mines that will disable their engines." Kim smiled grimly. Earth's greatest advantage was not just superior technology, but superior adaptability. While the Empire used the same tactics that had worked for thousands of years, humanity constantly evolved and improved. "How long until the new weapons are ready?" 72 hours, Dr. Lim replied. "But we'll need to field test them in actual combat conditions." "You'll get your chance," Kim said. "Long-range sensors detect the Imperial fleet massing at the edge of our solar system. They'll be here within the week." But the Empire was not content to wait. Grand Admiral Vex Ithari had brought her fleet to the outer edge of Earth's solar system. But she had also brought something special: experimental quantum jammers designed by the Empire's best scientists. "Deploy the jammers around the asteroid belt," she ordered. "If the humans are using space-folding technology, these devices should disrupt their ability to teleport." The quantum jammers were massive devices, each one the size of a small space station. They created fields of distorted space-time that interfered with faster-than-light travel. The Empire had developed them to prevent enemy fleets from escaping, but Vex Ithari hoped to use them to trap the human ships in normal space. "Jammers, deployed and active," reported her science officer. "The entire inner solar system is now locked down. Nothing can use hyperspace or quantum folding within the field." Vex Ithari nodded with satisfaction. "Now we'll see how effective these humans are when they can't run away." The first test came when Imperial scout ships detected unusual activity in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. 3 massive energy signatures appeared on their sensors, too large to be natural phenomena. "It's them," Vex Ithari said, studying the tactical display. 3 human capital ships, hiding among the asteroids. They're probably hoping to ambush us when we approach Earth." She ordered a direct assault. 500 Imperial ships advanced into the asteroid belt, their weapons charged and ready. The plan was simple: surround the human vessels and destroy them through sheer overwhelming firepower. But the humans had other ideas. Captain Kim received the warning from his sensor operators, just as the Imperial fleet entered the asteroid belt. Enemy ships approaching from multiple vectors. Estimate 500 vessels, all capital class. "They're trying to use the quantum jammers to trap us," Dr. Yoon observed. "Our fold drives are operating at only 60% efficiency." Kim studied the tactical situation. The Empire had learned from their first defeat and was adapting their strategy. But Earth had been adapting too. Signal the shield of humanity and sword of freedom. Execute Plan Delta. The 3 human supercarriers had been hidden among the largest asteroids, using the rocks as camouflage and protection. Now they emerged like awakening giants, their weapons charging as they prepared for battle. The Imperial fleet found itself facing an enemy unlike anything they had encountered. The human ships were still partially able to use their phase shift technology, flickering in and out of normal space even under the influence of the quantum jammers. Fighter squadrons poured from all 3 supercarriers, but these were not the same fighters that had fought in the first battle. Dr. Lim's team had upgraded their microfold drives to work even in jammed space, allowing them to make short-range teleportation jumps. Pilot An Bo-ram led Phoenix Squadron in a diving attack on an Imperial battlecruiser. "Remember, target their shield generators first," she called to her wingmates. "The new quantum resonance torpedoes should collapse their defenses immediately." The improved weapons worked exactly as designed. Imperial shields that had withstood the heaviest bombardments for centuries simply dissolved when struck by the resonance torpedoes. Armor that had been considered impenetrable was torn apart by weapons that attacked the molecular bonds holding it together. But the Empire had advantages. 2, sheer numbers allowed them to concentrate massive firepower on individual targets. The Shield of Humanity took dozens of hits as Imperial ships surrounded it, their weapons battering its advanced armor. Captain Yu Min-seo, commanding the Shield of Humanity, watched her ship's damage reports with growing concern. Hull breaches on decks 40 through 60. Shield generators operating at 30% capacity. The battle raged through the asteroid belt for hours. Human ships used the rocky terrain to their advantage, hiding behind asteroids and using the Space Orcs as weapons, hurling them at Imperial vessels with their tractor beams. But the Empire's quantum jammers were taking their toll. The human ships could not retreat to safe distance or use their full folding capabilities. They were trapped in a brutal close-range battle where the Empire's numerical advantage began to tell. "Sir," Engineer Choi reported to Captain Kim, "the quantum jammers are disrupting more than just our fold drives. They're interfering with our phase shift generators and even our communications." Kim realized that the Empire had finally found an effective counter to Earth's technology. The battle in the asteroid belt had raged for 18 hours when Captain Kim made the decision that would change everything. The Aegis of Terra was badly damaged, its sister ships in even worse condition. Half of Earth's fighter squadrons had been destroyed or disabled. The Empire's quantum jammers were working exactly as designed, trapping the human fleet in a grinding battle of attrition. "Sir," Engineer Choi Min-ho called out over the sound of explosions echoing through the ship's hull. "If we don't retreat soon, we won't have enough power to maintain life support." Kim studied the tactical display. The 3 human supercarriers were surrounded by the wreckage of both fleets. Hundreds of Imperial ships floated dead in space, but hundreds more continued to pour fire into the human vessels. Grand Admiral Vexa Thari had proven herself a formidable opponent. "All ships," Kim broadcast to his fleet, "prepare for emergency fold. We're pulling back to Earth orbit." But even as he gave the order, Kim knew it might be too late. The quantum jammers made long-range folding impossible. The best they could do was short jumps, and the Empire would follow them every step of the way. Dr. Yoon Ha-na looked up from her damaged console. "Captain, I'm detecting something unusual. The quantum jammers are creating resonance patterns in space-time. If we could amplify those patterns—" "What are you thinking, Doctor?" "The jammers work by disrupting quantum fields. But if we overload them, they might create a feedback loop that destroys the entire jamming network." Kim felt a spark of hope. "What would that require?" "We'd need to channel all 3 ships' quantum fold drives into a single, coordinated pulse. It would probably destroy our fold capabilities, but it might take out their jammers too." The risk was enormous. Without fold drives, the human ships would be trapped in normal space, dependent on conventional engines that were no match for Imperial technology. But if the jammers were destroyed, Earth's other ships could join the battle. "Do it," Kim decided. "Signal the Shield of Humanity and Sword of Freedom. Tell them to prepare for coordinated quantum overload." On the bridge of the Shield of Humanity, Captain Yu Min-seo received Kim's message just as another Imperial barrage tore through her ship's armor. "You heard the man," she told her engineering crew. "Link our fold drives to the Terra's signal. All power to quantum generators." The Sword of Freedom, commanded by Captain Park Dong-wook, was in the worst condition of the 3 ships. Its bridge was partially destroyed, and Captain Park was coordinating the battle from the emergency command center. But when he received Kim's order, he didn't hesitate. "This is either going to save us all or kill us all," Park muttered. "Link fold drives to the Terra. Prepare for overload sequence." The 3 supercarriers began to move closer together, using their damaged engines to form a triangle in space. Imperial ships continued to attack, but their fire was less effective as the human vessels concentrated their defensive systems. Grand Admiral Vexa Thari watched the human maneuver with growing suspicion. "What are they doing? All ships, increase fire. Don't let them escape. But her science officer suddenly called out in alarm. Grand Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy buildup from the human ships. Their quantum signatures are off the scale. Are they preparing some kind of super weapon? Unknown, but the energy levels are approaching critical. If they're building up for an attack, the science officer never finished his sentence. The three human ships released their coordinated quantum pulse simultaneously, sending a wave of pure energy racing through space at faster-than-light speed. The pulse struck the Empire's quantum jammers like a hammer blow. The massive devices had been designed to disrupt quantum fields, but they had never been intended to handle a direct quantum overload. One by one, they began to explode in brilliant flashes of purple fire. All jammers offline. Vexthari's science officer reported. The humans have destroyed our entire jamming network, but the victory came at a terrible cost. On the aegis of Terra, every quantum fold drive had burned out in the overload. Sparks flew from damaged consoles, and the ship's lights flickered as power systems struggled to maintain basic operations. Fold drives are completely dead, Engineer Choi reported. We're stuck in normal space until we can rebuild the entire quantum matrix. Kim nodded grimly. The gamble had worked, but now Earth's most powerful ships were sitting ducks. Signal Earth Defense Command. Tell them the jammers are down and we need immediate support. Admiral Lee Daeho received the message in the underground command center, beneath Luna Station. Around him, displays showed the tactical situation throughout the solar system. The three supercarriers were badly damaged and trapped among the asteroids, while hundreds of Imperial ships prepared for a final assault. But the destruction of the quantum jammers had opened new possibilities. All ships, Lee broadcast on the fleet frequency. Execute Operation Phoenix. All hidden units are authorized to reveal themselves. Across the solar system, space seemed to come alive. Ships that had been hiding in asteroid fields behind moons and in the shadow of planets suddenly appeared on every sensor screen. Earth had not built just 3 supercarriers. In the 20 years since discovering the architect technology, humanity had constructed an entire fleet. 50 capital ships materialized around Jupiter, each one armed with quantum weapons and phase shift generators. 100 cruisers emerged from hiding places throughout the asteroid belt. 300 destroyers appeared near Mars, their stealth fields dropping to reveal sleek hulls bristling with advanced weapons. President Moon Hyun-sik watched from Earth's orbital command center as humanity's true military might revealed itself for the first time. The fleet that appeared was larger and more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. My God, whispered Ambassador Park So-jin. We've been preparing for this war for decades, but Earth's surprises were not finished. Deep beneath the planet's surface, in hidden facilities built into mountain ranges and ocean floors, something else was stirring. The architect database had contained more than just ship designs. It had included blueprints for weapons that could reshape the very fabric of space. Dr. Bae Ye-jin stood in the control room of Earth's most secret installation, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Antarctic ice. Around her, technicians monitored displays showing the quantum resonance field generators that had been built into Earth's crust itself. Planetary defense grid is online, she reported to Admiral Lee. We can create quantum barriers around Earth that will stop any attack, including planet-killer weapons. The revelation that Earth had turned itself into a fortress sent shockwaves through the Imperial fleet. Grand Admiral Vexthari watched in disbelief as her sensors detected energy patterns. That suggested the entire planet was now a weapon. How is this possible? She demanded. Intelligence reported that humans had barely reached their own moon. Her communications officer looked up from his station. Grand Admiral, we're receiving reports from across the Empire. Other species are beginning to rebel. The Kethari have seized control of their homeworld. The Dulamari have destroyed 3 Imperial garrisons. Vexathari realized that Earth's victory was inspiring revolution throughout the galaxy. The empire that had seemed invincible was suddenly facing enemies on dozens of fronts. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. Dr. Scientist Bay made another discovery in the Architect database. Earth was not just another planet. It was a nexus point in the ancient galactic network, a hub that connected quantum pathways across the entire galaxy. The architects had built their civilization around such nexus points, and Earth was one of the most powerful. This explains everything, Dr. Bay reported to President Moon. The crashed ship on Titan wasn't an accident. The architect pilot was trying to reach Earth because he knew what this planet really was. We're not just inheriting their technology. We're inheriting their responsibility. President Moon understood the implications immediately. Earth was not just defending itself anymore. It was positioned to become the center of a new galactic civilization, one based on freedom rather than conquest. Signal all Earth ships, Moon ordered. This is no longer just about our survival. We're fighting for the freedom of every species in the galaxy. The message was broadcast throughout the solar system and beyond, carried by quantum transmitters to every corner of the galaxy. On hundreds of enslaved worlds, the message gave hope to billions of oppressed beings, but it also told the Empire exactly what they were facing. This was not just a war between Earth and the Veltharian Empire. This was a revolution that would reshape the entire galaxy. Grand Admiral Vexthari made a desperate decision. If Earth could not be conquered, it would have to be destroyed completely. Signal. The Imperial Core Fleet, she ordered. Bring the planet destroyer. We end this now. Somewhere in the depths of space, the Empire's ultimate weapon began its journey toward Earth. The planet destroyer was a moon-sized vessel capable of shattering entire worlds. It had been used only once before to crush a rebellion that had threatened the Empire's rule. Now it was coming for humanity. The final battle for Earth's freedom was about to begin, and the stakes could not be higher. If Earth fell, the galaxy's hope for freedom would die with it. But if Earth could survive, a new age of liberty would dawn among the stars. Admiral Lee Daeho stood in Earth's orbital command center, watching the long-range sensors track the approaching planet destroyer. The massive weapon was still 3 days away, but its presence filled every display screen like a dark omen. Around him, the greatest minds of humanity worked frantically to find a solution. The planet destroyer is 20 kilometers in diameter, reported Dr. Bei Yejin. Our analysis shows it carries enough firepower to crack a world in half. Even our planetary defense grid can't stop something that massive. President Moon Hyun-sik studied the tactical displays with growing determination. In the past week, everything had changed. Reports from across the galaxy told of successful rebellions. On dozens of worlds, the Kethari had liberated their entire star system. The Dulmari had formed a resistance fleet. Even species that had been enslaved for thousands of years were rising up against the Empire. How long do we have? Moon asked. 72 hours. Until the planet destroyer reaches Earth orbit, Admiral Lee replied. But that's not our only problem. Grand Admiral Vexithari still has 1,500 ships in our solar system, and more Imperial fleets are arriving every hour. Captain Kim, Taemin's voice crackled over the communication system from the damaged Aegis of Terra. Mr. President, we've been analyzing the planet destroyer's design. It's built around a quantum singularity weapon, essentially a controlled black hole, but there might be a way to stop it. Explain, Moon said. Dr. Yoon Ha-na took over the explanation. The planet destroyer uses the same quantum field technology as the Empire's other weapons, just on a massive scale. If we could overload its quantum matrix, the same way we destroyed the jammers, we'd need an enormous amount of power, Dr. Bay interjected. More than our entire fleet can generate. Admiral Lee's weathered face showed a mixture of hope and concern. What about the planetary nexus? If Earth really is a hub in the Architect network, could we use that power? Dr. Bay's eyes widened as she understood. The quantum resonance field generators we built into Earth's crust are connected to the ancient network. If we could activate the entire system, do it, President Moon ordered. Whatever the risk, we can't let that weapon reach Earth. But even as Earth prepared its desperate defense, the galaxy was changing around them. News of humanity's resistance had spread to every corner of Imperial space. On the industrial world of Keftar, enslaved workers had seized control of weapons, factories. On the mining colonies of the Helix Nebula, rebellion fleets were forming from converted cargo ships. Fleet Admiral Shin Yu-jin, newly promoted to command Earth's expanded navy, coordinated with these rebel forces from her flagship. The liberation of the galaxy had begun, but it all depended on Earth surviving the next 3 days. "Sir," called Ambassador Huang Dayun from the communication station. "I'm receiving messages from rebel fleets throughout the galaxy. They're asking for coordinates to join our defense." "Send them," Shin replied without hesitation. "Every ship that fights for freedom is welcome here." The next 48 hours saw the largest gathering of ships in galactic history. Vessels from dozens of species converged on Earth's solar system. Some were purpose-built warships that had thrown off Imperial control. Others were converted cargo haulers and mining ships armed with whatever weapons their crews could find. But they all came with the same purpose: to defend the world that had shown them freedom was possible. "Captain," Kim watched from the bridge of the Aegis of Terra as the diverse fleet took positions around Earth. His ship was still badly damaged, its quantum fold drives completely destroyed. But his crew had worked miracles to restore the vessel's weapons and defenses. "Sir," reported Commander Oh Jin-woo, "all fighter squadrons are ready for launch. The pilots are asking permission to coordinate with the rebel fighters." Kim smiled despite the gravity of the situation. Human pilots flying alongside alien crews they had never met, united by the simple desire to be free. Permission granted. "Show them what Earth's pilots can do." Pilot Anbo Ram led Phoenix Squadron out to meet a formation of Kethari fighters. The alien ships were sleek and graceful, completely different from human designs but clearly built for speed and maneuverability. "Earth pilots, this is Wing Commander Thekrai of the Kethari Liberation Fleet," came a translated voice over the communication channel. "We are honored to fight beside the people who gave us hope." "The honor is ours," An replied. "Let's show the Empire what freedom looks like." But Grand Admiral Vexus Thari was not finished. As the planet destroyer approached Earth, she launched a massive assault with her remaining ships. 1,500 Imperial vessels attacked the combined Liberation Fleet in a desperate attempt to clear the way for their ultimate weapon. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships from dozens of species fought together against the Imperial fleet. Human quantum weapons tore through Imperial shields, while alien fighters provided cover and support. The space around Earth became a massive battlefield, stretching from Mercury to Jupiter. Explosions lit up the darkness as weapons that could destroy moons clashed with shields that could deflect stars. Dr. Bay worked frantically in her underground facility as the battle raged above. The quantum resonance field generators were building up power, drawing energy from the ancient architect network that connected distant stars. "Power levels at 60%, she reported to Admiral Lee. "But the system is overheating. We might only get one shot at this." On the surface, people across Earth could feel the planet itself humming with barely contained energy. The aurora borealis appeared at every latitude as quantum fields interacted with Earth's magnetic field. Ancient stone circles and monuments that had been built on quantum nexus points began to glow with inner light. President Moon made the decision that would define humanity's future. "All ships, pull back to minimum safe distance. Dr. Bay, activate the planetary defense system." Deep beneath Earth's surface, quantum resonance field generators that had been built into every continent activated simultaneously. The planet became a single massive weapon, channeling power from across the galaxy through the ancient architect network. The planet destroyer, now only hours away from Earth, suddenly found itself caught in a quantum field stronger than anything the Empire had ever created. Its black hole weapon, designed to crack worlds, began to destabilize as the quantum matrix around it overloaded. "What's happening?" demanded the planet destroyer's captain as his ship began to shake violently. "The quantum singularity is collapsing," his science officer replied. "The entire weapon system is going critical." The planet destroyer's death was visible from every planet in the solar system. The massive weapon exploded in a burst of light that outshone the sun for several seconds. The blast wave swept through space, destroying every Imperial ship within 1,000,000 kilometers. Grand Admiral Vexithari watched from her flagship as her ultimate weapon died. Around her, the remnants of her fleet were in full retreat, pursued by the combined liberation fleets. "Signal all Imperial forces," she ordered. "Full retreat. We cannot win this battle." But even as the Imperial fleet fled, reports arrived from across the galaxy. The destruction of the planet destroyer had been seen by observers on hundreds of worlds. The weapon that had symbolized Imperial power for centuries was gone, destroyed, by a species the Empire had thought primitive. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Imperial garrisons on dozens of worlds found themselves facing rebellions they could not contain. Species that had never dared to resist suddenly rose up with new courage. Captain Kim received the news while coordinating rescue operations for damaged ships. The battle was won, but the cost had been enormous. Nearly half the Liberation Fleet had been destroyed or damaged. Thousands of brave beings had died to protect Earth and the hope it represented. "Sir," Lieutenant Kang reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from the remaining Imperial ships. They're asking for amnesty." Kim considered this carefully. Earth had shown the galaxy that the Empire could be defeated. Now they had to show what came next. "Accept their surrender," Kim decided, "but make it clear that they're not just surrendering to Earth. They're joining the fight for galactic freedom." In the months that followed, the Veltharian Empire collapsed from within. Without the planet destroyer to enforce their will, Imperial forces found themselves outnumbered by rebels on every front. Species that had been enslaved for millennia suddenly found themselves free. But Earth did not try to replace the Empire with another galactic dictatorship. Instead, humanity helped establish the Galactic Federation, a voluntary alliance of free worlds committed to mutual defense and cooperation. Ambassador Huang Da-Yun became Earth's first representative to the Federation Council, which met on a space station built at the center of the galaxy. The station itself was constructed using architect technology, a symbol of the ancient wisdom that Earth had inherited and shared. Admiral Lee, now elderly but still sharp, watched from the observation deck of the rebuilt Aegis of Terra as the first interspecies colony ships launched toward distant stars. Humans, Kethari, Dulmari, and dozens of other species worked together to build new worlds, where freedom was not just an ideal, but a way of life. "We did it," Captain Kim said, joining, his old friend at the window. "We saved the galaxy,